He says it's streaming.
Happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday.
It is.
We are
Welcome.
hanging out here
Yeah.
with our Sunday look back, and we've got it all mixed up here with microphones. I'm not really used to having something in my hand.
We do this on Sundays, but, well, I guess you don't really have the headset mic.
I cheat. I have my headset
that's
mic,
true.
so it's just too complicated to hold a mic and
Just don't get too animated and, fling your hands and all that.
throw the microphone, drop the mic. I'll say something really incredible and drop the mic and walk away. And then John will get really mad because these things aren't cheap. So anyways, it's Tuesday. We're here hanging out for the look back. If you're with us, feel free to say hello. I don't have my phone on me, so hopefully our chat up in front of us will show us who's there at some point. But if not, Nick will say hello or greet you. So we are here. It is pretty warm outside. It looks nice outside, and we're enjoying moving towards summer here, moving towards Memorial Day weekend. Do you have any Memorial Day weekend plans?
Actually, yes. We're having a little bit of family coming into town. My grandparents are coming.
Nice.
I've not seen them in probably 6 or 8 months.
Wow.
It's been a little while. In person, anyways. We had kind of our holiday family Zooms. So they're coming. We're celebrating my niece's 1-year birthday on Sunday, and other than that, just kind of hanging out. Should be good. How about you?
Yeah. We have some family coming into town as well, and if you just drive by my house right now, I have a giant dumpster sitting in my driveway, so there's some work that's going to be done. We're going to be cleaning out our garage. Doesn't that sound like a fun plan?
That sounds amazing. Chris, a couple weeks ago, told me a story about bags of pop cans in his garage last year, and it sounded pretty disgusting. So based on that story, it does not sound like it's going to be a fun process cleaning out the garage.
I hope there's not any other dead animals. Let's just say that. So, see, now I feel obligated to share that.
That's
since
up to you.
That up.
Yeah.
Or I could just leave it, in a mysterious way that they can wonder. So, I'll indulge. So, we'll have the small talk here for a moment while some people get connected. We had the scent of a dead animal in our garage for a long time, or just a really bad smell, and I couldn't find it, digging through stuff, and finally it went away. But this was all during the lockdown when you couldn't return any sort of cans. And so I went to Meijer and walked in and started unloading this one bag and felt something kind of squishy and looked into the bag, and the scent was very overwhelming. So I sealed it right up and apologized to the people nearby. And that bag left. It went in the garbage. Yes, it was. I took it with me. I couldn't leave it at Meijer, even in the bottle deposit area. So threw it in my trunk, and I think I just put it in the dumpster out here or something. So it was nasty.
Yeah, that's disgusting. I'm sure there's a spiritual analogy in there somewhere. Maybe you'll use it on Sunday in your sermon. I don't know.
The rotting things you leave in your life. So.
Right, exactly. It's there somewhere. So we are, side note, shameless plug, we're collecting pop cans out in the lobby of the church just inside the main entrance that the youth are going to be using to put towards their mission trip this summer. And I really appreciate all those of you who have brought pop cans and bottles for us. And we also appreciate when you don't bring us dead animals. So keep it up. We don't want to have another Kris experience.
Oh, that is really great. There's a bunch of pop cans, or there was a bunch of pop cans on Sunday. So that's really good. Great way to support the team. Because you guys are going where this summer?
Jackson, Mississippi.
Nice.
We think it's hot here. Just wait till we get down there in a couple months. But it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
We're excited. It's going to be a really great trip. Have 22 high school students going on the trip.
That's a lot of students.
And,
what are some of the things you'll be doing there?
Yeah, so we are going to be partnering mainly with a church down there. It's a church plant. A pastor who was from Jackson, moved away, moved back, felt God calling him to start a church in one of the neighborhoods. And it's just going to be a lot of relational ministry, working with this church, some of their partner organizations and ministries around the city, getting to interact with people, whether that's soup kitchens or community outreaches. Even one big element is just going to be understanding race and ethnicity a little bit more. Jackson was kind of one of the central hubs from the civil rights movement in the 50s and 60s, and Michigan Marshall especially, is very different from that. And so we're excited to just kind of be able to deal with some of those things that maybe we don't as much around here. And a great opportunity for our students to serve, to learn, to grow, to have a lot of fun together. And it's always a good time. It's great.
Yeah, mission trips are hugely impactful. It's the reason that I connected with ministry and the heart of ministry, and just so thankful for the opportunity for students to continue to serve, and Nick's continued on with that as we have had the youth travel all over the place, all over the country. And I have many students come back and just say, hey, they don't talk about Sunday nights, they don't talk about these other things. They say, hey, I remember this trip. And usually it's some sort of just crazy story from the trip or some impactful person that they met while they were there. But it's definitely memorable and life-changing. And so if people want to help, here's another shameless plug, is they could help with the pop cans, or they can just make a donation to the trip, whatever it may be, as I know your students are doing a good job getting things around. And so today we are looking back. Is there anyone we can say hello to?
Yeah, Jennifer with us, Carol, Kathy Tarkowitz. She wasn't the first one on today, but she's with us. And Bethany Simmons. Hey, guys.
Awesome.
Good to see you, Bethany.
Good. Thanks for being with us. So on Sunday, we continued our series, Healthy, and really looking at, we looked at the story of the prodigal son, which is really the story of the prodigal sons. We put a lot of the blame on the younger one, but the older one was just as much of an issue. And we couldn't even go into all the details of what was happening in that parable. It's a brilliant parable. Tim Keller wrote a phenomenal book if you want to study it more. Also, Henry Nouwen wrote a book strictly looking at the painting that we looked at, Rembrandt's painting on Sunday. He just, Nouwen would go and sit in this museum, which I think was in Russia where the painting is. I could be wrong. But would just go and just sit and stare at it for days on end and reflect and pray and really meditate on what God was telling him. And then he went and wrote a book, and just some amazing insights. But the prodigal son or sons, I guess your general thoughts on that parable, like what Jesus was getting at, how it impacts you. I guess when you look at that parable, what stands out to you?
Yeah, there is, as you said, there's so much in this story. And, you know, every time I hear somebody speak on it or study it or whatever, there's just something more that God reveals to you in that. And, you know, I know probably one of the biggest things that's really challenged me as I've grown up and come to understand the story more and more. It's easy to read it and to get after the youngest son as he has this really, honestly, horrible thing where he's like, you know, Dad, you're as good as dead to me. Just give me my money, I'm going to leave. And he does, and he wastes his inheritance and all of that. A lot of times we look at that and go, oh, that's not me at all. I would never do that. I'm not like that at all. And we kind of miss the opportunity to connect with this story. And I think that that's something that you really got at on Sundays. There are two sons in this story. And, okay, spiritually speaking, what's true of the younger son here, if we've placed our faith in Jesus, that's that point of humility and brokenness that we need to get to, is to be able to say, look, like, we don't deserve to be God's children. We are sinners. We have rebelled against him. We've been poor stewards of what he's given us, and yet he gives us that opportunity. He welcomes us with open arms. And so that's the point we need to get to spiritually in order to come to the Father. But then there's also that reality of being the older brother where it just so easily becomes about doing the right thing in the background, maybe out of obligation, maybe just because you do, but we don't have the heart in it. And, I mean, you talked about anger, especially on Sunday, and some of those things that stir underneath for even a long time that we don't address. And it impacts our ability to love the Father and to love those around us. So those are just a couple of thoughts. I don't know what your thoughts are about this.
Yeah, there's so many layers, whether it be the spiritual element, the older brother looking down at the one who returns to the Father. And that's the mission of the church, is the one, even those who have walked away from faith, is when they return to the Father, we embrace. And often what we do is we just push away or shun or whatever it may be. And to be that younger brother who humbles himself in this situation, but as the older brother to embrace, to really mirror the Father instead of to push away and, you know, essentially to say, I've always been slaving for you. You know, that he was close to the house, but he was in the field. And we, as followers of Christ, we can be close to the house and close to God in proximity, but more so in the field, where it's just that little bit of distance, where we can do what we want, say what we want, think what we think, and instead of being changed in the reality, there is just remarkable elements of who God is and how God just showers down just mercy, he showers down grace upon us. It's transforming. I mean, the younger son knew he could go back because his father was good. He didn't think he'd be received as son, but he knew he could go back and be received. And again, there's a misgiving, there's a falsehood that we think of, like if we've sinned, if we've done whatever this is, God won't receive me back. I'll just try to be good from here on out. When no, he's like, no, you're still my son, you're still my daughter.
Yeah, and one of the things that you talked about with that on Sunday too is that in the story, the father takes on the shame. He, as a well-respected, wealthy man, in spite of the regulations and what was normal, he put that aside and he ran to his son. And even the fact that he was looking, he was waiting, he was watching, that God has taken on our shame. We don't have to be living in that anymore. We don't have to be identified by that or consumed with that anymore because he's taken that on for us. And yes, because of his love, his grace, his mercy, as he just mentioned. And just as you were describing that, I've never thought about this before, but with this story, obviously it's a parable. Jesus is speaking some spiritual truth in this. I'm really curious thinking about how this story would have looked different if the older brother were joining the father in standing there and waiting and watching and running to his brother and embracing him. And, we see that from the father. We don't see that from the brother. And, of course, the father in the story represents God. And we are not at the same level as God, of course. But it's just interesting thinking about even as we relate to not just the father, but to other people as well. When I see somebody who has been living maybe like that younger son, but they've come in humility and brokenness and confessed their sin, they place their faith in Jesus. Am I running to accept them and to forget about their shame? Or am I still standing there with my arms crossed? That look of contempt or uncertainty or doubt or whatever it might be. So I think there's a challenge for us in that as well.
I like that idea of the older brother running to his younger brother. You pose the question, what would have happened? I think the community would have gathered around, is that to see not only the father embrace the son, but to see a brother who had been hurt, shame put upon him too, to go and embrace a brother. There's a good picture that there's probably some other people that would have come out of the crowd and said, I'm in this too, welcome back. And there's a great connection there to the church, is that yes, God welcomes back everyone who turns to him. But a lot of times as followers of Christ, we don't welcome back. And as that older brother, we need to welcome and invite others as part of the community to welcome people in and welcome people back. And there was a thread that was going on Facebook earlier this week and talking about church and the hurt that's been caused and why people don't go to church. And really the heartbeat behind this was this distance, this separation, and the person was very vague and one of those obscure kind of posts, not really knowing clearly what they're talking about. But there's this hurt that you could see people just saying, and the importance of just, hey, God loves you. And I think of a time back when I was in college that I went with a buddy of mine somewhere, and I got to talking to a whole bunch of people who were in this place, and they found out I was a Christian, and they started telling me all their stories about that they love God, but the church had just pushed them away, that people, not the church, the institution, people in the church had pushed them away. And I spent that night basically saying, God loves you, and God knows your heart. And it was just this night of unexpected ministry that took place, and we just need those people to be able to speak that and speak that life and speak that truth. And that doesn't mean saying everything's okay, because in the story, the father and the son and everyone knew that there had been sin committed, and they didn't say, oh yeah, that's fine, good for you for doing that. It's like this, hey, welcome back. We love you, we embrace you, we know you, and that welcome for the return.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is that idea of that welcome acceptance. You're accepting them even in spite of what they've done. You maybe aren't necessarily accepting what's been done, but you still are loving that person. You're still accepting that person. And just knowing that our role as the church in whatever people around us are walking through, as they're coming to us, we want to be here to listen. We want to be here to love, to care for, to pray for, to speak that truth. This last year has been, in a lot of ways, such a year of isolation. And this is such a great picture of why we need that love. We have the love of the Father. And as you pointed out, if the Son had responded in like, the community that you would have seen in that. And to know that we're not meant to be alone. We're meant to walk through these things together. And so, again, the challenge for us as followers of Jesus is, okay, when I'm walking through this, how do I bring other people into my life to walk through that with me? When I see other people around me, how do I make myself available to them so that I'm there to listen, to pray, to care for, to encourage, support, mourn, comfort, whatever it is, And so because we don't want to walk through these things alone, and we don't want other people doing that either.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the Father models that. At the end, he says in verse 31 of chapter 15 of Luke's Gospel, "My son," the Father said, "you are always with me, and everything I have is yours." But we had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And this is a reminder of the Father demonstrating exactly what you're just saying, is that, hey, listen, we're here. Like, I'm with you. But we need to celebrate. We need to recognize the change. And on Sunday, I talked about 3 different elements of what it might be like if we're acting like the older brother. Because no one wants to be the older brother, but if we really dig down, especially if we've been in the church for a while, is that we can look like that older brother. And those 3 things, and you can comment on any of them is, if you so choose, is I talked about we do not process anger. We just let anger sit within us, like the older brother did. We complain and we grumble a lot, like the older brother did. And we do not let go of offenses. So there's anger that just sits in us instead of being processed. There's complaining and grumbling, and there's offense that we just will not let go of. This lack of forgiveness, which is way too common, unfortunately. And so those are 3 real elements of we may be closer in who we are to the older brother than we may want to admit. And that's processing through that, walking through that, asking people around us, like you just mentioned with that. So,
yeah, that's exactly what I was just going to say is that is a really scary question to ask. Again, people, even just the closest people, your spouse or best friend, somebody who knows you really well, but to be able to ask that question of, okay, how is this true of me? Do I grumble and complain? That's something that other people have a better view on than maybe you do. Or even if you're taking offense at things, sometimes that shows itself outwardly. Something like the first one you're talking about of just really that suppression and holding on to things. I forget exactly how you worded that. The first of those 3.
Basically internalizing anger.
Yes.
Or embodying anger but not processing it.
Yes, thank you. Not processing it. That's so dangerous because you might be able to put on that happy face and pretend like everything is all good in here when in reality it's not. And at some point it's just going to boil over. It sits there and stews and it's going to explode. And I don't consider myself a super angry person, but I would say that's probably, of those 3, definitely where I struggle the most, because Kris and I are a lot alike in personality. We're both peacemakers, and so I know, like, for me as a peacemaker, I would rather just, all right, like, I'll just deal with this on my own. I'll just suppress this frustration or anger or whatever, if it makes somebody happy, or if it keeps the peace or whatever. And maybe that's fine the first time, but after time, that just starts to build up more and more and more and more, and then something silly just sets it off, And the grumbling, complaining, like, I definitely am guilty of that at times, probably, I'm sure, more than I realize. You can ask Elsie. But yeah, that idea of just needing to process those things and having somebody safe around you to process those things with. Obviously, it's important to talk to God about it. That's key. That's huge. But to have somebody you trust who can listen and who can speak that truth out of love, not because they're trying to bring you down, to tear you down, but simply because, hey, this is a way that I want to learn and grow. And sometimes we have those blind spots. We don't realize, those ways that we're struggling or failing to walk with God.
Yeah, that's, as you say, Nick, the importance of community. And you mentioned isolation earlier in the conversation, is the importance of having community around us, because it does refine us, it does change us, it allows people to speak into our lives. And so I encourage you is make sure that you're in community in one way or the other. That's something that we're working back towards. Our group, which stopped meeting during the last year, we're really eager to get back together. We're having those conversations, and we just long for that community and connection again. And so I'm looking forward to getting together with them. But the reason being is that they could speak into and just share, and you see things that we can be blind to. So, yeah.
Yeah, the other thing with that, too, is we want you to know that we're here for you. And so whatever you're walking through, if you listened to Kris's message on Sunday or not, whatever it is that's going on in your life, like, we're here to listen, to process, to pray for. We want to come alongside you in that. And not that we necessarily can always relate to exactly what you're going through, but, we know one who can, first of all. And just know that we do love you and care about you and want to come alongside you however we can. So whatever that looks like for you, if you need somebody to talk to, somebody to reach out to, know that we're here for you. So just wanted to add
Absolutely.
that.
We are here, and the church is here too. And they need you like you need them. And something I've realized more and more through this time, and I keep mentioning it again and again, is that your return to community, whether it's on a Sunday morning or a group or whatever, is not just about you. It's about the other people that need you. And I have watched people again and again minister to each other throughout this time. I've seen people even up to as soon as recent as today find out that they're doing something for someone, just caring for them, walking through a season. And we're going to be announcing some things too coming up here about some care ministry that's going to be really unfolding in some exciting ways here this fall and also into the new year. So really looking forward to being able to share that and share some things that God has really opened our eyes to throughout this time of how we can better care for people as followers. So I think we have about come to our time here. Any final comments, thoughts?
Yeah, last thing I'll add, kind of the title for the message on Sunday, that idea of living in brokenness and vulnerability. Not that we really are unpacking that right now. That's a really terrifying thing, but that's exactly what Jesus did and modeled for us. And just the healing that comes from that versus that pride and defensiveness like you talked about is really an amazing thing. So yes, it's not fun or easy to be broken and vulnerable, but when we do that in the right way, there's a lot of good healing that comes from that. So that's all I got.
Well said. All right, so we will see you next Tuesday. We will be back again this Sunday. We have 2 services, not 3 like we've been doing. So 8:30, we're going to be indoors here at the church. 10 o'clock, we are going to be outdoors in the yard, backyard of the annex there. And we're really excited. There's not a 3rd service, so 2nd and 3rd will be combined outdoors. So we are moving towards just some great weather outside and some time together to worship. So hopefully you'll join us Sunday. If not, we'll see you online or back here on Tuesday. All right, have a great day.
Take care.